Again, is this what the Shemitah looks like? Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 13. I will surely consume them, saith the Lord. There shall be no grapes on the vine, nor figs on the fig tree, and the leaf shall fade, and the things that I have given them shall pass away from them. A wild month on Wall Street ends, and another begins. For several years, parking one's savings in the United States stock market seemed like a no-brainer. Not only did stocks steadily climb, giving investors far better returns than they could get from their bank accounts, the ride-up was smooth. Then August broke the calm. Stocks, as measured by the Standard & Poor's 500 stock index, tumbled 6.3% in August, finishing the month on Monday with a decline of 16.69 points, or 0.8% for the day. It was the worst monthly performance for the benchmark in over 3 years. The decline wiped more than $1 trillion off the value of stocks. Crucially, the turbulence interrupted an unusually long period of tranquility for investors. On 5 trading days in August, the S&P 500 moved up or down by more than 2%. Moves of that magnitude have been relatively rare in recent years. We were in a bull market in complacency. Some think that the spike in volatility that we've seen in the last 10 days is a precursor to further spikes. In recent days, investors sold heavily as they grappled with new and old concerns. On August 24th, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was down over 1,000 points at one point during the day, before recovering somewhat. For the month, the Dow was down 6.6% after losing 114.98 points, or 0.7% on Monday. The main source of worry continues to be China's $10 trillion economy, which appears to be slowing more than analysts had originally thought. The slowdown has raised fears that the country will now buy fewer goods and services from other countries, weighing on a global economy, but has consistently struggled to gain traction since the financial crisis of 2008, 7 years ago. On Tuesday, the Dow Industrials plunged 469 points, and the Nasdaq Composite shed 2.8%. The VIX index of volatility jumped to almost 34, while risk-off moves were the name of the game in currencies. So, what's causing the renewed turmoil? A simple fact: numbers don't lie. They are showing that manufacturing and exports are tanking worldwide. Again, and the things that I have given them shall pass away from them. The Dow fell 469.68 to 16,058.35. The S&P fell 58.32 to 1,913.85. The Nasdaq fell 140.41 to 4,636.10. In China, a key official index of manufacturing activity sank to 49.7 in August from 50 in July. That was the weakest in 3 years. A separate private report on production also remains stuck near its lowest in more than 6 years. In South Korea, exports plunged at a massive 14.7% rate in August. That was much worse than the mid-single-digit decline that was expected, and the biggest plunge since the 2009 Great Recession. manufacturing activity in Chinese trading partners like Malaysia, Vietnam, and Japan is also falling. Indonesia showed its 11th straight contraction last month. Many on Wall Street had been counting on the United States to hang in there, even as many foreign markets and economies deteriorate. But the Institute for Supply Management report dashed those hopes. The U.S. index sank to 51.1 in August from 52.7 in July. Not only did that miss economists' forecasts, but it was also the worst reading since May 2013. That's 27 months ago. There seems to be a trend here. The numbers show the global economy is losing momentum, led by sharp slowdowns in emerging markets. We're seeing the U.S. stock market start to crack with wild declines and equally powerful short-term bounces. Some say this is the time to raise shields, so to speak, and gird for a battle with an increasingly volatile market. And again, there's even something much bigger going on here. So then, is this what the Shemitah looks like? And this is the warning.
I'm so glad you're here today because we have an exciting show and two more to follow that are just riveting, I think, in the day in which we're living. A lot of prophecy is for the entire world, and we will broach on that, but specifically, there are some messages for America in what we're going to be looking at today. Our guest is Pastor and Rabbi Jonathan Cahn. I believe you're a native of New Jersey?
Native of New York.
New York.
But now I'm in New Jersey.
That's where I heard. You're in there now.
That's where our ministry is. Yeah.
New York.
I was born, yes.
And you came to Christ at your age 20, you told me.
On my 20th birthday.
And so the Lord began to show you some things to your own surprise a few years ago. I'm going to hold up this book, The Harbinger, and we'll be making a product offer in a few moments. But this was the first book, that at least that you achieved such notoriety of.
Notoriety is one word. It was the first book I ever wrote, and it happened rapid fire, and it really as if it really literally wrote itself. I never wrote a book, and it just happened like that. And
I want to commend you because when I read this book, to me, Jonathan, the creativity of this was you didn't just give a teaching book, you folded this within an intriguing story. And even people that maybe struggle to read or just don't digest a lot of facts, they will be drawn into this. It's one of those, I can't put this down.
Yeah, originally I wrote The Harbinger nonfiction, and then I was led, as soon as I finished, the Lord led me change it.
Yes.
The Lord uses parables and allegories to reach those, exactly as you said, to make, because there's a lot of deep things in it.
And it's more memorable.
Yeah, to make it easy for people to read. And so that there's this thing with the prophet revealing the mysteries through these seals happened in like a flash. It came to me, and then the thing just wrote itself.
And then you followed up with the book, The Mystery of the Shemitah.
Well, the Shemitah. Well, yeah,
Shemitah.
Yeah. Well, that just came. We're talking, and it just came out. This is the next thing. Yeah, the Shemitah actually begins in the Harbinger. There's several streams of mysteries. One of them is the mystery of the Shemitah, and we were talking before. The Harbinger, literally the things in it have continued. They haven't stopped. I believe this is a sign that America is heading for judgment. It has continued. The harbingers have continued to manifest. The mysteries have continued and to come true. And one of them that people talked about from the moment it came out was the Shemitah, because there's speculation because now the Shemitah is coming. Now we are heading to a Shemitah.
Well, that concept kind of harbinger.
Yeah.
So this is an elaboration and a exploration of much more.
Yeah, more than Yeah, it began with that, and because I saw what began with 9/11 having to do with the Shemitah. But what it turns out, this thing is so big. I mean, it's so gigantic, and the majority of what's in the mystery of the Shemitah is all new because I didn't know it. And, I had a sense. There's a verse in the Harbinger where the man called Noriel asked the prophet, basically, is there more? Does it go back? Does this thing continue? And the prophet says it's for another time. That was alluding to the fact that I knew there was more to it, but I had no idea how big it was. So the mystery of the Shemitah is over 3,000 years old.
My goodness.
And yet it lies behind virtually everything. It lies behind It's the key to the rise and the fall of the stock market, the rise and crash of the economy, the rise and fall of nations, in global cataclysms, the First World War, the Second World War, the Holocaust.
That's amazing.
The atomic bomb, the Cold War, 9/11, and even the rising and what may be the fall of America and what may be sooner than later.
That's amazing.
It also, I mean, there are things in there, something called the mystery of the towers that goes to the biblical, beginning with Babel, the link between the rise of towers and the rise of nations and the fall of nations that has to do with America. There's even an end time thing that the Shemitah is really the key of God's timing, as we'll see. But it holds the key to something called the seventh Shemitah, that links, that even holds the key to the restoration of Israel, the restoration of Jerusalem, the timing, and that
okay.
mystery is coming to a head very shortly.
And I believe, and you referenced this in some notes that you sent me, we're going to have an intersection with the blood moons even at this
the blood
point.
moons,
So
the
we have some exciting
suns, the
stuff
black
to talk
suns,
about.
Everything. It's amazing.
Well, we have the luxury of 3 shows, so let me just sort of start at the beginning with The Harbinger. And for those that may not have read it yet, what would you describe as the basic message from the 9:10?
Yes.
Isaiah 9:10,
Yes.
the prophecy.
Yes. The Harbinger is a mystery that begins in the last days of ancient Israel, when a nation in rebellion to God is going to be destroyed, or it's going to be warned. God sends warning to them. He sends 9 harbingers or prophetic warnings.
Yes.
And they ignore them, they reject them, and they are destroyed. The eerie thing, the scary thing, is the same 9 harbingers are now reappearing on American soil. Some have appeared in New York City, some have appeared in Washington, some have involved the President of the United States, and they're coming true. And so they're each happening precisely. It's not general, it's exact. And so what it tells us, the Harbinger is warning, we are on a path heading to judgment. And one of those mysteries, there's 9 harbingers,
yes,
and then there's several mysteries, then dovetails with the Shemitah, which is the exact timing of God's plan. So we're coming to this big convergence because everything is continuing and intensifying.
Well, I came to the church I pastor now. I came right after 9/11 in America.
Okay.
I came and preached in view of a call in August, and then I arrived and began my ministry the 1st of October. The first Sunday I stood in the pulpit, I said, well, the world has changed since I was here last.
No.
And going to the attack on the Twin Towers and the crash and the rebuilding from ground zero, could you tell us Isaiah's prophecy and how it speaks to America?
Yeah, what happened is that there's a pattern of judgment is classic in the Bible, that years before the judgment comes on the nation, there was a warning sign.
And that's mercy. That's God's mercy.
Total mercy. And with Israel, it was the only thing that would wake them up. And he allows an enemy to make a strike on the land, temporary, limited. It's a shaking. It's a wake-up call. But the nation, instead of turning back and really getting saved out of what was coming, they respond with defiance. And the prophet Isaiah records what they said. Isaiah 9:10. They said, the bricks have fallen in this attack, but we will rebuild with hewn stone. The sycamores have been cut down in the attack, but we will plant cedars in their place. They're telling God, we're not going to repent. We're going to come back stronger against you. This is going to set the stage for their judgment. And in Isaiah 9:10 are the 9 harbingers which start reappearing. Well, America, the first shaking, the nation's hedge of protection, first harbinger, happens on September 11, 2001. As you said, things change. Everything changed. And this is the warning, same thing. But America, instead of coming back to God, starts replaying this ancient mystery. In fact, leaders actually start saying the same exact words that the leaders of Israel said that led to their destruction.
And this is incredible to me.
And the 9 harbingers begin with 9/11. And it's so exact. Some are objects, some are ceremonies, some are national leaders, even again involving the United States, vowing vows, pronouncing judgment on America without realizing what they're doing, setting the course. And that led to the second shaking, which is the pattern of judgment, which was the collapse not of buildings but of the economy.
Yes.
And in 2008. And that also has this biblical stream of mysteries behind it. And the key, the most exact key, is the Shemitah. The Shemitah gives the exact day of when these things happen. It gave the hours, it gave and the minutes, even the seconds. That's how mind-boggling this is.
That is. You're going to have to explain how that really happened.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the first thing is what I found out since the Harbinger, is that this thing has been affecting our lives from the beginning. I mean, from as far back as you go. It's amazing. It's getting more intense, which is a sign that we are heading to judgment. We are closer. Now, the Shemitah begins when God gives it to Moses on Mount Sinai. And basically, a lot of people don't realize, every 7 days was a Sabbath day. They know that. But every seventh year was a Sabbath year. The Sabbath year was called the Shemitah. The Shemitah, during the Shemitah, there was no sowing, no reaping. The land rested, no buying or selling of the fruits. And on the last day, called Elul 29, the month of Elul, the Hebrew month, and the 29th day, something unique happens. All debt is wiped out, all credit's wiped out, all financial accounts wiped clean. Now, this was to be a blessing. But when Israel turned away from God, this blessing of the Shemitah becomes a sign of judgment on a nation that has turned away from God. And that strikes, first, the financial and economic realm of that nation, the blessings of the nation. What does that have to do with America? America is not under the law. But this is a sign of national judgment. God is consistent. The amazing thing we're going to see, and it's the whole world, by the way. I mean, it's affected the whole world. But America is very central. This mystery has affected America. America is now the nation turning away from God that had once known God.
Yes.
And so the Shemitah has been striking our financial realm, our economic realm. It has determined Wall Street and much more. And it is the key to what is going to happen. And I'll give you an example. Well, first of all, if you look, here's just the beginning of it. If you look at the greatest, the last, say, 40 years. In the last 40 years, you have 5 major financial collapses. I mean, I talk about long term. I mean, it leads to recession. 5 major turns of the economy, peaks and crashes.
Right.
I'm not talking about day crashes. I'm talking about big long term. Is there any pattern? They all happen according to a 7-year cycle. All of them.
I've seen financial people analyze that, but they never had the lens that you're looking through, so they missed it.
That's exactly it.
They were looking at total economic factors, not God.
It's exactly it. I mean, there are several mysteries that have literally mystified Wall Street for over a century, and the answer is in the Shemitah, is in the Bible. It's amazing. So one of them is that. So they all happen within 7 years before or after the next one. But not just that. Not only do they happen, these crashes happen in 7 years, but they happen not just 7 years, but they happen on the 7th year of the Shemitah. I mean, each one is on the exact Shemitah of God there. If you go farther than that, look at the greatest overall long-term crashes in the 20th century or in American history. The majority of them take place linked to the Shemitah. The majority of them. If you, for instance, the top 3, you have the Great Depression. The Great Depression. The Shemitah reaches its peak, and that next month you have the greatest month crash in American history, right in the center of the Great Depression. You have 1937 is one of the top 3. The Shemitah begins. The next day, Wall Street collapses.
Okay.
You have the top 3. You have the Great Recession, which is actually number 2. Well, that is so precise, it goes down to the exact day, which we'll get into.
Right.
I'll give you another one there. If you look at what happens if you look at the greatest day crashes, I mean, single day crashes, percentage crashes.
Percentage crashes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just in one day. Is there any pattern? Well, here's the key in the Bible. The key month of the Shemitah is the month of Tishri. That's
right.
Because Elul 29, this day of this great crash, it leads to Tishri. Tishri is the month that manifests this wipeout. Okay, the financial wipeout. Now, here's the thing. If you look at the greatest crashes, they can happen at any time of the year, 12 months. The majority of them all center on Tishri. The majority of them.
And that's why the markets are always spooked around October.
This is it. This is
where we're standing.
This is called. This is called in in Wall Street history, it's called the October mystery or the September.
Uh-huh.
October. They've been mystified for years that why do most of the crashes happen at this time? Well, the Bible gives the answer. The Bible says this is the very time of the financial wipeout that God gives from 3,000 years ago.
And I want to ask you something to kind of establish a link. America is a global leader in economy, so I understand what happens here reverberates around the globe.
Yes.
But America also, excuse me, was in a very unique position with God
Yes.
because of the way we began and a covenant almost that was made that you address in the Harbinger, the very site of the prayer, the dedication.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the mysteries one of the mysteries of this is that when the calamity comes, when it came to Israel, the calamity returned to the same ground where the nation was dedicated to God. It was the Temple Mount, and it was a sign that the covenant was broken, that God was calling the nation to return. Well, when America was dedicated on the day of its beginning, its first day as a fully formed nation, with George Washington as the president being sworn in, was they dedicated America to God on this ground in the capital. But the capital wasn't Washington, D.C. The capital was New York City. And where in New York City? America was dedicated to God. The ground of our consecration as a nation is ground zero. The ancient mystery returns to the same ground. And so the mystery is all there. And
right there at Wall Street.
Right there, also right there at Wall Street. And one of the messages of the Shemitah is that the nation's blessing, like with Israel, comes from God. All our blessings come from God, our prosperity. The Puritans prophesied, if you follow God, America, you'll be the most blessed civilization on earth. It happened. But if you turn away from God, they said, then the same judgments that came on Israel will come upon you. And that's what we're watching. The Shemitah is the warning, and it was for Israel, but it's the warning that if we turn away from God, the blessings, that's economy and such, are going to be removed. Now, the thing is that not only is it these crashes I mentioned about, but if you look at the greatest point crashes, that's magnitude, you find that the top 5 point crashes in Wall Street history, all of them are linked to falling right around Elul 29, the very day. And
now that's the last day of the month.
That's the day of the wipeout. That's the of the year, of the Shemitah year. That's
the year.
That's the day of nullification, wipeout. That's when all the accounts are wiped out. Now, the sign of a nation in danger of judgment. Now, the thing is, Kevin, as we move forward and we're watching America turn away from God, this phenomenon of the Shemitah is getting more and more intense.
Joel, chapter 3, verse 13. Put in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Go in, tread, for the winepress is full. The vats overflow, for their evil is great. 14. Multitudes, multitudes, in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near, in the valley of decision. And all these are more signs